only discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shameless Picture Show.
Hey guys, Michael here. I just wanted to do a quick little introduction for this episode. Very much like the last episode Amanda and I did. Part 1 of our journey through the Milwaukee Film Festival. This is the much anticipated part 2, where we talk about the other films that we had seen. In total, grand total, we watched 17 films in 14 days, which just feels absolutely incredible. It was a surreal experience. It was a whirlwind experience. I'm really excited. Thank you guys for coming on this journey with me. If you go to my TikTok, you can see I did some videos about what we've been watching. I also reviewed on Letterboxd every single movie I had watched. Amanda was also doing some posts. It was a great time. And then after these, we'll be getting back to our regular scheduled program. And our very next episode is going to be with Maggie Greenwald. It's an interview. And we talk about her film, The Ballad of Little Joe. So huge thanks to the Milwaukee Film Festival and Milwaukee Film for sponsoring Amanda and I to go on this journey. This is our first film festival that we've ever done press for. And I don't think we're ever going to forget it. Fingers crossed we get invited back to come do it next year. And as always, thank you very much for listening. And here is our episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Shameless Picture Show. I am your host, Michael Viers, and joining me today is my beautiful and talented wife,
Amanda.
Yeah, you did it this time. I was going to introduce you with your work title, but I couldn't remember what it was. What's your work title?
System software engineer.
Yeah. And today I'm joined by system software engineer Amanda Viers to talk about movies.
System software engineer 2.
Because you just got that
2 days from now.
Yeah, you just got that promotion. I thought it was officially tomorrow.
It's the 1st.
Okay. I see.
Which I think is Wednesday.
Yes. It's your first day in that position. It's my last day in my position.
Yep.
So that's exciting. We're off to bigger and, well, you're the same company, but I'm off to bigger and better things.
With my company.
With your company, yes. I am jumping ship to go to a different company. Okay. So we just wrapped the 2024 Milwaukee Film Festival. How do you feel?
Good. That was a lot of really good movies. It was a lot of movies.
It was a lot of movies. We watched, I calculated 17 movies.
In what, 14 days?
14 days.
Yeah. So, and we didn't take off of work, so that made it tiring.
Yeah, there's sometimes I wish we would have taken it, and just to give ourselves like a little bit of a break, a little bit of time to just process, because it was a lot. It was not even just a lot of watching movies, which there was that, but it's not like we're going to see the new Transformers movie or something. It's not, while some of these movies were a lot of fun, you're going into these situations a little bit differently. You're going in trying to knowing that I have to think of something to say about this. And maybe I bit off more than I could chew with this, because I don't imagine everyone who went to a press screening forced themselves to write a full review about everything. And that being said, I didn't write full reviews, but I wanted to at least touch on every single thing that we watched, whether it be this podcast, my TikTok videos, which I think now there's 3 of them in total. And I wrote something, even if it's just a little blurb, a couple sentences to a paragraph about every single movie we watched.
Mm-hmm.
And fun fact, other than a couple outliers, I think I'm maybe 4 behind, I've written a review on Letterboxd for every movie I've watched this year.
That's impressive.
So other than those 4, I have done 91. So 87.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm pretty proud of myself because every time I've tried to do this, I get overwhelmed and I don't do it. But I have.
I can't even stick with logging every movie for an entire year. I end up forgetting.
I really like Letterboxd. What can I say?
I know. And I like the idea of it, I just forget.
And a lot of times you can usually use mine as kind of a guiding tool of what we've seen, but there are definitely times where I've watched things that you haven't, and
Yeah.
but that's also why I keep notes of that.
I can usually like know when I look at yours, know what I've seen as well. But it's more so like if I'm too far behind, that's a lot of movies to go back and add.
Yeah, it can become a lot. Like I think you might have done one or two during the film festival, but
no, I did the film festival ones.
Oh, you did all of them. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome.
Nothing else this year though. Like at all.
And that's fine. That's fine. You use Letterboxd in the best way possible in that you use it to look up reviews, people's dumb one-word reviews for movies.
Yes.
And that's honestly, that's my favorite thing about the Letterboxd. But okay, so I think the best way to do this is just to go one after another. All right, so we started. So go back to listen to part 1 if you want to know what our first half of the film festival looks like. And this is almost a perfect half. I want to say
it is a perfect half.
Like in terms of the way we broke the movies up.
Yeah, because it was Friday to Thursday and then Friday to Thursday.
Yeah, I meant like the amount of movies.
Oh.
Okay, we watched 8 on the first episode. 9 on the second. So almost. All right. So starting on April 20th, we had a double shot that day.
Hold on. No. We didn't talk about the 19th.
I logged it on the 20th. This was for the 19th. I logged it on the day that we finished it. So this is actually, you're right. It is April 19th. We have on April 19th, we had Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person, which is a film by filmmaker by the name of Ariane Louise-Seize. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Movie's all in French. I think the movie's French-Canadian, based on the fact that at one point they're eating poutine, and there's a lot of posters that are in English. I think it's French-Canadian, but I don't know for sure. Anyways, this movie is about a character by the name of Sasha, who has a problem in that she does not like to kill humans. Oh, and she's a vampire, by the way. I should mention that. She's a vampire. Everyone should have the problem where you don't want to kill humans. But she is a vampire who struggles to kill humans. So she lives with her parents, mooching off of their blood supply. And eventually her parents get a little frustrated and give her a sink or swim moment where she has to go and fend for herself. So they have her go live with her cousin, who's going to teach her the ways of killing and feeding off of humans. She's struggling with it, and then meets a young man named Paul, who is a teenager with suicidal ideation, who is willing to sacrifice himself for her. But since she is a humanist at heart, she struggles with this and wants to give him a night to remember before she feeds off of him.
I feel like, just to interject,
yes, please.
I don't think sacrifice himself for her is the right wording, just because like it's a nitpick, but like that sounds like he's like willing to die for her, which I guess is sort of true, but like he was already suicidal and very
That's
depressed.
fair. He was willing to die for himself. But
yeah, and he figured this would be a way for his life to have meaning if he goes out to feed
That's
her.
fair. And while that is a nitpick, that is a fair nitpick.
Yeah, I just feel like the vibe is different because it's not like, I don't think he is like in love with her or anything, like I would die for you kind of thing. Not
At least
at
not
that
yet.
point. Yeah, not at that point.
So what did you think of Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person?
I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. I don't know. It just had a kind of dry sense of humor, which I enjoyed. Yeah, and it was shot really well. I like how all the shots looked, the dark but also really colorful cinematography.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen this film, but for listeners who are aware of this, this might give you some indication of like what I thought the film was like stylistically. It was like if Amelie was about vampires. That's kind of how it felt, where it had a very deliberate style. It was almost like a Wes Anderson style, where it was very symmetrical and it used a lot of two shots, but it didn't quite do it in the way that he does, which I appreciate. And I mentioned in my Letterboxd review that I think it's really interesting that we got this and Lisa Frankenstein right around the same time of each other, where it's two youth presenting monster movies. And while Sasha technically is 60, for the intents of this this discussion, she's quote unquote young.
Yeah.
And yeah, I found myself really liking this too. I like the dry sense of humor. I thought it was very sweet. The performances were very subtle. If anything, it was weird seeing it with the audience that we saw it with, because the audience thought it was far more hysterical than we did. And it's not that the movie's not funny, but they were like losing their shit laughing, like they were watching like a new Judd Apatow movie or something.
Yeah, they were laughing like it was a very different type of comedy than I think it was.
Yeah, like she moves her eyebrow and they're just howling, which was fun. It's just like, are we watching the same movie?
Mm-hmm.
And I also should mention we saw this movie at the Times Cinema. I have to say, I love the Times. We've talked about it quite a bit. They are not the theater to see subtitled movies at.
Unless you're tall.
Unless you're tall. Because so the story behind the seats that they have, they got those when a big megaplex closed down, and they got a really good deal on those seats. So they replaced all their chairs with those. And they're comfortable enough, but the theater was for anyone who's been to the Times in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, the theater it goes down on a slight incline, has a tiny little dip in the middle, or near maybe like 2/3 of the way to the front, and then dips down again. And the problem is the chair backs are much too tall for how slight of an incline it is. So we were kind of reading subtitles through the partitions between seats.
Yeah.
And it was so hard to see. At one point, someone complained that your arm was up and they couldn't read the subtitles, which is fair.
Yeah.
So I love the Times. I think it has some of the better sound quality in the state. Is not a great theater for watching subtitled movies unless you're tall or if you sit in the back. But as we found out with a movie we're going to be talking about later on, sitting in the back, you kind of lose some of the oomph. But that's just me.
I agree.
Anything else you want to add about Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person?
I don't think so.
Oh, right. And then on the 20th, and like I said, I logged the Humanist Vampire on the 20th because we technically finished it on the 20th.
Pretty sure it wasn't after midnight when we got out of that one.
Was it really not?
No.
All right.
The only one that was after midnight is Sleep.
Well, then I'm going to adjust my review. I now have that adjusted. All right. Then actually on the 20th, we watched An Army of Women. Do you want to talk about this one a little bit? I think this film is better having you talk about it than me.
Yeah, An Army of Women takes place in Texas. I can't remember what.
Yeah, it was Texas.
Austin, Texas. And it follows a group of women that have been sexually abused one way or another, and their cases have been dismissed by the DA's office.
Mm-hmm.
So they are working with a group of lawyers to basically sue the police department and the DA's office for mishandling their cases.
Yeah. And continue.
I was just gonna say it's a documentary. It covers 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
And everything that they went through to try to get different things passed. It was 6 years from when they originally filed the first lawsuit with these lawyers. However, some of their cases were from longer ago than that. But yeah.
Yeah, this was a movie that, so most of these movies I went in completely blind on. And I knew this movie had to do with bodily autonomy. But I didn't quite know exactly what it was going to be about. So this movie kind of floored me because it didn't necessarily tell me anything new in terms of the way that I see the world. It just strengthened the way that I see the world. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's really just disheartening. And the reason I wanted you to kind of take the lead on this, because I don't think this is the type of subject that people don't really need a male's perspective on. But what I've always found to be just heartbreaking about subjects like this is, at a young age, we're told, and because it's true, that one of the worst thing you can do to someone is sexual assault. But yet, the way that our laws are work out, they don't treat it like it's the worst thing you can do to someone. They let people off very easily. They gaslight people into thinking what happened didn't happen to them. So we're told one piece of this narrative, and it's almost a unanimous thing that this is bad. This is a bad thing to do to people. You shouldn't do this. But yet none of our rules or laws hold much weight in terms of actually prosecuting people with this.
That's because it just comes down to, the sexism in our society, because these things happen when there aren't usually witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to, what does our society believe, the man or the woman? And it's not typically the woman.
Yeah.
Obviously, not to say that men can't be sexually assaulted as well.
Yeah.
But, in this case, and in many cases, it's they tend to take his side.
Mm-hmm. And there was one subject in particular. I unfortunately do not remember her name, but she had been fighting this the longest. I think she had been fighting this for 15 years, where there was a clear and cut case of kidnapping, and they had all the evidence to prove it, and still nothing happened.
Yeah, she was on the first case that they filed with the police department, or the first lawsuit that they filed with the police department and the DA's office. She was the main person on their side, because it made no sense that her case wasn't prosecuted.
Yeah.
They said everything, the DNA and everything lined up, and for whatever, they didn't go into details on what was said, but for whatever reason, he got away and nothing happened.
Yeah, and like, what also just made this documentary just so hard to watch was, so one, I appreciate all the women in this movie, the ones who chose to speak up, and then the ones who couldn't bring themselves to do it, because that's an aspect of this as well, is one of the subjects deciding whether or not she wants to come public with this. But I appreciate that, even though they've all been fucking failed by our justice system, that they didn't give up and they kept fighting and tried to make change how they could. But what was so hard to watch was even the people that were on their side were backpedaling. I can remember early on in the film, they were all backing this, I think it was a governor or someone who was going to be trying to take office in Texas. And
The new DA?
Yeah. Well, there was, I think so. And there was a point where he was saying all these things he wanted to do. And then once he got into office, they were still waiting for him to start putting any of this stuff in motion.
I don't remember that, but that doesn't surprise me.
Like, I remember they were like, oh, we're still waiting for him to get started on this. And they were trying to track him down via calls and such. And he eventually did do it. But even he was like, it felt like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I misread this. It felt like he not necessarily using them, but it was a platform that he stood for when he was running, but then kind of took his time to get going with it.
Mm-hmm. And part of that is things don't move fast.
No,
for better or for worse,
especially when they don't want things to move fast.
Yeah. The person that was debating whether or not she wanted to get involved was the one whose case should have been cut and dry. That was the same person. Yeah. But then there was another woman who was debating whether or not she wanted to, or whether or not she felt like she belonged with this group because her case was a domestic sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
And she was kind of struggling with feeling like it was bad, but was it as bad as someone who was kidnapped by a stranger? Or, and that's another thing that I think is important to talk about is, any of it's all bad. Just because one is a stranger and one is someone closer to you doesn't mean that one is worse than the other.
Mm-hmm.
They're just bad in different areas. But what's cool is one of the ladies now works with the police department there and helps, and they won their cases. Spoiler alert. But one of them works with the police department on strengthening their training for these kind of cases. Now this movie is a required viewing by every officer in that precinct. And they are trying to get it seen and in more police departments and like city halls and stuff.
Yeah, which I think is great, and I think this should become required viewing, and I honestly wish there was more men in that audience. I had a conversation with a man at the urinals about that very subject after the movie, because I think we were one of a handful of men in a pretty packed screening, and we even got a Q&A with some of the subjects and one of the lawyers involved in this film.
Yeah.
Oh, right. And then later on that night, also on the 20th, we followed that up with another foreign film. This one is Korean, called Sleep, directed by Jason Yu. So this movie is about, I had to look up the characters' names because I couldn't remember, Hyun-soo and Soo-jin. They are a newlywed couple, and she works in some like large office building type job. He's an actor, and they're starting their life together, but the husband, Hyun-soo, is having problems with sleep. At first, what just starts seemingly it just feels like some sleepwalking and maybe some scratching in his sleep starts becoming something far more sinister as the threat of injury, the threat of self-harm come up. And as when they finally have a child together, she's worried about, Soo-jin is worried about the health of their baby, because while sleepwalking, Hyun-soo killed their dog. And what we find out through the span of this film is Soo-jin wondering, is this just a case of really bad sleepwalking, or is there something more paranormal afoot? So we had mixed feelings about Sleep. What did you think?
It was creepy in a lot of ways, which I liked, but I didn't feel like there's a scene where they like show footage of her having done a ritual on him
during her PowerPoint presentation.
And instead of us getting to actually see the ritual, we just see a video clip in a PowerPoint. Or no, it wasn't even a video clip.
It was like a photo. It was a poorly framed photo at that.
Yeah, in a PowerPoint presentation. So, like, I just feel like there's some moments of this where, like, they opted to not show things that I think would have made it more interesting. And instead, you know, I don't know. I feel like I wanted more from it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. Like, I feel like that was supposed to be used as like a reveal that, because like they're writing this line through this entire movie of whether or not Hyun-soo is, like I said, sleepwalking, or if spoiler, or if he's being possessed by a ghost. And they fought, and Soo-jin believes that their was it downstairs neighbor is who was an old man who hated how much noise they would make. He's passed away, and that he is possessing Hyun-soo's body to make their life a living hell, to pay them back for. Huh?
He flirted with her when he was alive.
Oh, you're right.
He possessed her husband and wanted to get rid of the dog and the baby and have just him and her.
I forgot about that. That is a great point. I completely forgot about that tidbit. That changes the movie quite a bit. Yeah, so I liked this movie. Me and you both have a fondness for Asian cinema because it is a kind of a blind spot for both of us. So we've been slowly kind of making our way through some of the bigger films when we can catch them. So this felt like a no-brainer of one that we wanted to see. Some things I really liked. I really liked the dynamic between our two leads. I loved their relationship.
They were so believable and so adorable.
Yes, it's I just love how wholesome they are. They're so supportive of each other. And even in the entire way when, Hyun-soo was going through all this very rigorous and probably expensive treatment for his sleepwalking, she's just like, we're going to get through this. I'm going to make lists. I love the list that she has on the wall, and they're just adorable. And it's got this fun kind of jaunty energy that makes the scare moments work better because we care about them. And there's a very slow burn to those scares where at first it's like it's unsettling, but we don't know if there's any real reason to be alarmed other than the fact that he might hurt himself while sleeping.
Sleepwalking people are creepy.
Yeah, it is very creepy. And I feel like if this movie would have been made, if there was a U.S. remake for this, they would have ramped up a lot of the scares a lot sooner in this film.
Oh, definitely.
I honestly love that Soo-jin makes a fucking PowerPoint presentation to explain all the spookiness to her husband.
I mean, like, despite my complaint about like the not seeing the ritual, the general reveal of that PowerPoint presentation and then how that ties into the final act is fantastic.
Yes. My biggest complaint about the movie, hold on 1 second. I thought the pacing was a little strange. Because it started off so light and fun. When things started getting a little more crazy, I think I had said this to you when we were walking back to the car. I wanted some like Sam Raimi level of tension, because Sam Raimi is really good about keeping things fun, keeping things scary, and kind of riding that line. I wanted some of that we've seen in other Asian horror films, but the film started getting very dour when things started picking up, and it lost some of that fun energy it had at the beginning. I also don't think the chapter breaks were really helping with its pace. It made the film feel sluggish.
Yeah, no, that I forgot about those actually. It was really weird because they were chapter breaks, but there were only 3 chapters.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, made it feel really long because when the 3rd chapter card came up, it's like we're only on chapter 3 right now. And it's not to say that I wasn't enjoying it, but like putting a timer on something like that makes you more aware of it.
Yeah, and it's a timer in the wrong way, where it's not like
Yeah.
a ticking clock timer
Yes.
where you like,
Yeah.
oh, we have 20 minutes before the world blows up. So then everything they're doing has tension.
Counting up is anticlimactic. Counting down
Yeah.
is climactic.
And I could have seen the chapters working if they were more of them and they were shorter.
Yeah. Or if they like, I didn't really feel like they added anything at all.
No, not really. But like, I liked Sleep. I want to see what Jason Yu does next, and I do think this movie is going to find its audience. Hopefully, it gets a release and people can see it, because there were quite a few things I liked, despite my kind of lukewarm review of it.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, let's see, what day was this on? We have on the 21st, we have a double bill of documentaries. Which one do you feel most comfortable describing?
Probably Chasing Amy.
All right, then I'll start. First up, we had Let the Canary Sing, which is a documentary. It's directed by Alison Ellwood, who did a really good documentary about the Go-Go's a couple years ago. Let the Canary Sing is the story of pop fucking sensation Cyndi Lauper, and it chronicles her start at a young age, her how she got into music, her first album, She's So Unusual, and how that came to be and how that blew up, all the way through her where she's at now, doing things on stage, and also fighting for civil rights. So Let the Canary Sing. I liked this movie. What did you think?
It was fun. I mean, I like Cyndi Lauper's music.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot about her that I didn't know. To be fair, I didn't know much about her at all as a person. I feel like it was, all things considered, a pretty expected. Like it played out like as far as like how a documentary plays out, the way that I would have expected.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was fun. I like her.
Yeah. So this is my least favorite type of documentary, despite the fact that I watched quite a bit of them, because I like.
I would not believe that for a second.
Well, I should say my least favorite type. I love documentaries, and our next film is a better example of the type of documentary that I like. So this is what's known as a talking head documentary, where it's just just people talking, looking back on a specific situation of why it's important to them. And I think what makes this film work better than some of the other ones is Cyndi Lauper is such an enigmatic subject in herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really works. I knew I just wanted, so I love music documentaries, even though I don't love many of them, if that makes sense. I like them because I'm a nerd for music. I'm a nerd for music history. So I like to hear all the inside stories of how things came to be, the recordings of their albums, where things came from. Because I say in my Letterboxd review, a couple years ago during the pandemic, I was laid off. And 7 months without a job, I had to find things to do. So I hid my personal frustrations and fears in music. And I remember very specifically, I was cutting the grass, and I was trying to go through like discographies of people that I haven't heard before, albums that I hadn't listened to, and I listened to in its entirety She's So Unusual, to the point where like that was probably the most detailed lawn job that I've ever done, because I didn't want to stop listening to it. And I fell in love with that album, and it rose its way up into one of my favorite albums of all time. Like, and I just, I felt that those good vibes listening to that album while I was watching this movie. I started unconditionally crying when she was talking about recording Time After Time. Like I just couldn't help it. I just started tearing up.
Yeah.
And then you also like some of the things I liked about this movie is because I didn't know much about her history. And it's not even just her as a child, but it's like I didn't know she was in a band before.
Yeah, I had no idea.
So getting to see recordings of Blue Angel, which was her first band, and hearing how different she sang then, was great. I love Billy Porter's running commentary of describing what it was like watching Cyndi Lauper and Patti LaBelle singing with each other.
That was great.
So while this movie was a bit paint by numbers, I still ultimately liked it because Cyndi Lauper elevates it herself.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like if she wouldn't have been in this movie, it would have been okay.
Yeah. I know, I guess for me, like I did want to see more about her like family life. I know I read an article afterwards that she specifically wanted to keep family and work separate, which is fair. But like in the movie she mentions that she met her husband, so she just says like I met him and he's like, you know, he was like the best thing or whatever, but I was like, did he die? Because she never talked about him again.
Yeah.
So honestly, I googled afterwards because I was like, did he die? Because he never came up again. She's like, I met this guy and he was everything to me, and then never again was he brought up. So I just thought that was kind of weird. Like I can respect the wanting to keep family and work separate, but it was weird not to get like anything about that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And granted, I only know the stuff that I read, so maybe the stuff that I read is less true, but like her longtime manager and boyfriend, was it David Wolf? They had a very tumultuous relationship, and he was, from what I had read, a very controlling person as well. Like I remember in that documentary that I watched not too long ago, what was it called? Hold on, I got Letterboxd pulled up. The Greatest Night in Pop, that documentary about recording We Are the World. They talk about Cyndi Lauper being there and how she almost couldn't make it because David Wolf didn't know he wanted her to be part of that. So even though she wanted to be part of it,
I don't like that.
He was controlling her. And like I said, that's just the stories that I'd always been told about what their dynamic was like. I don't know really what it was like because he's in it and, you know, who knows? Yeah. But like, I not saying I wanted more dirt, but I wanted more dirt. I wanted a little bit more, like everything was so perfect from this point. I wanted a little less of that. And sometimes these documentaries, especially when the subject is involved, can have a bit of that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes struggle with having a bit of that, I should say.
Yeah.
Whereas our next one that we also saw on the 21st, I feel like gave us every side of a lot of these arguments. We had also watched that day Chasing Amy, directed by Sav Rodgers. Amanda, you want to explain Chasing Amy?
So Chasing Amy is it follows Sav. He made the film and is kind of becomes the main subject of the film. Starts out when he was a kid. He loved the movie Chasing Amy. As a young gay kid, did not know what other options there were out there. So really resonated with Chasing Amy despite some of the issues that we see with it now. And Chasing Amy is kind of his journey as an adult, kind of talking to other people about Chasing Amy, also meeting the filmmakers, and it ends up being the through line is kind of his transition to male, and also his relationship with his wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is another subgenre of documentary that I love, movies that are deep dives about movies, because anyone who knows me should not be surprised by that. But a lot of times, movies about other movies, or fandom documentaries in general, whether it be movies, music, whatever, can sometimes have a hard time being fair in terms of they let their absolute love for something shine through. And that's great, because if you're going to dedicate your life to making a documentary on something, you should at least find the subject interesting, if not love it. But then the problem you run into is it's nothing but love, no criticism, 10 out of 10, no notes type of thing. And I say it in my review for this on Letterboxd, that this may not have been the film that Sav Rodgers set out to make, but it was the film he needed to make. And this documentary goes beyond just a young kid at the time that he started making this, exploring his love for chasing Amy, and it became, like you said, a movie about finding who he is through this movie. And what I like that this movie does is very much like Sav, for a very different reason. I loved Chasing Amy when I was younger, because they even say this in the movie. It is a perfect gateway movie for young straight white men to be told queer stories. Even though Kevin Smith is not a queer filmmaker, the 90s were a very weird time when you could get away with that.
It was also interesting that part of the inspiration for the story was his friend and their other friend who
Scott Mosier and Guinevere Turner. Sorry.
Yeah. And she is a lesbian, so it's interesting that, and it sounded like he worked with her on getting her approval on some things, and she didn't necessarily approve of everything. But I didn't know that he, it was somewhat based on something that he saw in a relationship, in a friendship, in real life, and then also had input from a friend. So
yeah, and that was something that I didn't know about either, because I've heard, I know a lot about this movie, and I'd always heard that it was based on his relationship with Kevin Smith's relationship with Joey Lauren Adams, and how him feeling inadequate in life because she had more experiences in life than he had. So the other piece of information I never had heard about. And at one point, I think Kevin Smith even tells the story that he's like, I suggested that Scott go write this movie, and he thought he was too close to it and couldn't do it. So he decided to go off and do it. And it's the movie for me in Kevin Smith's career, because Kevin Smith was a big part of my early filmmaking career in terms of the types of stories that I wanted to tell, that it put me in touch with his romantic side and made me realize that I could make fun movies that also have a romantic side to them, because Clerks didn't have that. Right. Mallrats kind of had that, but this felt like the logical progression of his more personal style of filmmaking. That is when and those are his films that I usually gravitate towards. But what I think this movie does beautifully, other than giving Ben Affleck's Daredevil some love, it shows various sides of people's perspective on Chasing Amy. Because here's the thing about this movie. It's complicated.
Well, and I didn't grow up with it. So when you showed it to me, I didn't hate it, but I had weird feelings, because it was this feels, it's the narrative of all someone needs is, or all a lesbian needs is the right guy, and they're not a lesbian anymore. And it's interesting having seen the news articles and stuff that they showed from around that time when the movie came out, where people were talking about it that way, but then also seeing I think Guinevere was one of the people that was talking about how the movie unintentionally talks about biphobia.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting. Like, it doesn't make up for the kind of weirdness that we see in it now, but because it was, it was unintentional. It did kind of say not great things to some people back then, but obviously it had something good to say too. But it's interesting that it kind of became a almost relevant conversation as far as that. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting film about realizing that art and artists and people like that can really affect your life, whether you intended to or not. And also how not everyone is going to feel the same way about things. Sav Rodgers, still to this day, loves Chasing Amy. He's going to have a very different perspective on it by some after having made this film, but not.
But he also admits that like he didn't know there were other queer movies out there.
Yes, yeah.
When you're a kid and you're discovering who you are and that's all you have, it makes sense.
Yeah. And while I wasn't a queer kid who discovered this movie, it felt mind-blowing to have a story about gay characters that felt, to me at the time, felt honest. Like they weren't necessarily the butt of the jokes. They weren't the punchline. They were just living their lives and dealing with relationships in life. And that was my first exposure to that as well. But then everything that people within the gay community who don't like this movie also completely makes sense to me. And the way I kind of talk about this is a deeper conversation that we've had in the past, where you can have your problematic faves. You just can't ignore the fact that they're problematic. You can be like, I love Chasing Amy. It's got its problems, but I still love it for X, Y, and Z, instead of being like, someone come up to you and be like, Chasing Amy is kind of very queer phobic, and for you to be like, no, you're wrong. That's dumb. Like, you have to be aware. You can still like it. But you just have to be aware of what the film is intentionally or unintentionally saying.
Yeah.
So
it definitely
definitely
enhanced like the way I think about Chasing Amy. I will say, I think the movie that Sav wanted to make, I would not have been interested in. I mean, like, I would have gone and it would have been fine. I would have enjoyed learning more about it, but like, I would not have been as invested. But watching him learn who he was and seeing his relationship with his wife, who started out as his girlfriend in the beginning of the movie, and by the end, like, there was a progression of their relationship. That is what kept me invested. And then also just the fact that it wasn't just all glowing reviews. But their story and Sav's story is what made the movie for me.
Yeah, and then just to hear Joey Lauren Adams' very unfiltered opinions about that time period in her life, and like I said, someone who was very unapologetically a big Kevin Smith guy who prided him. Like, I listened to the commentary track of every single one of his movies. I've watched all the special features. I've used to listen to his podcast quite religiously. I felt like I knew everything that I needed to know about this movie, and I still left with a new perspective on it. So, bravo, Sav. All right, a couple more. But a couple more. And then we had I have it as April 22nd for Riddle of Fire. Is that accurate to your notes?
Yes.
All right, on April 22nd.
It's all in the calendar on the exact day that we watched it.
I know, but I don't have that pulled up. I have my letterbox pulled up. Okay. We had watched Riddle of Fire, a movie by Weston Razooli. I have no idea how best to describe Riddle of Fire, so I'm just going to read the description from Letterboxd, and we could talk about it from there.
That's probably a good choice.
So Riddle of Fire is tagline is the neo fairy tale film. That's the neo fairy tale film. Three mischievous children embark on an odyssey when their mother asks them to run an errand. On the hunt to obtain her favorite blueberry pie, the children are kidnapped by poachers, battle a witch, outwit a huntsman, befriend a fairy, and bond together to become the best friends forever. So, I bet you're all wondering, Michael, why was that so hard to describe? Well, because you hear that description, and the images that I can't speak for anyone else. I'm just going to speak for myself. That come to mind is that of, like a Dungeons and Dragons type session where you're gonna, like, almost like you're playing Skyrim. You're gonna have old timey, horses and dragons and like a fantasy film from the 80s. No, this is kids riding motorcycles shooting people with fucking paintballs.
And it takes place in Oregon.
It takes place in Oregon, the least mythical place I can think of. Maybe after Wisconsin.
Hey, we have there's lore here.
That's fair. And we also have a pyramid. So I guess that's cool.
That was in Illinois.
Oh, fuck it. Okay, we have lore here. Whatever. So I loved this movie. Riddle of Fire. This was my most anticipated movie of the film festival. Because I knew that Vinegar Syndrome was involved with it. I knew their sub company, Yellow Veil Pictures, was going to be putting this out on disc. And like I said, all I saw was the artwork, like the poster, which has got like a really fantasy looking type poster, but kids with motorcycles. And this movie delivered on all of those fronts. I described it to my buddy Eric Arsnow as it being Ridley Scott's Legend, made for people who love Stranger Things and live action Disney movies from the 70s.
It also just feels like it was shot very much like Neverending Story.
Yeah.
And like Willow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's like, while it's not contemporary in that, like, it's kind of got a timeless feel to it, it's more contemporary than Willow or Neverending Story are meant to be.
They have tech that we don't have.
Yeah,
like it feels very old, but then they pull out their cell phones and they can like scan like futuristic, like
they can zoom and enhance.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So it's like, it was very like absurdly timeless in that everything felt very futuristic, but also very, very old at the same time.
Yeah, like you have kids like I said with cell phones that can zoom and enhance in real time, and but yet they're spouting off medieval inspired dialogue.
Yeah.
And they're like stealing some mythical PlayStation ripoff that gives kids 4 controllers, which that doesn't exist.
That's the most futuristic thing of it.
Yes.
It gives you 4 controllers. Wild.
Yes. At one point, they play the main theme song from Cannibal Holocaust over a pie making montage. Like, that's just insane to me. And this movie just has such a great feel to it. The movie was shot on 16 millimeter, but it was framed in anamorphic widescreen at 2.35:1, and we saw it projected on 35 millimeter film.
Yeah.
Like, it just had a great really look to it. I love that the kids were untrained, like seemingly untrained. None of them seemed like actors necessarily.
Yeah, but they all felt very natural.
Yeah, and yet still wooden, but in a way that's charming.
Yes. Also, I love that the youngest boy, they had to subtitle him because he kind of talked like he was not great at enunciating.
Yeah. Yeah, like,
and I love that they just subtitled him because of it.
And yet he had some of the best, like, he was the funniest character. And
absolutely. It, like, I don't know, it added to his character that he had to be subtitled.
Yes, like I also wouldn't be surprised if like it was in the script, like this character subtitled or something. Like I could just see it being like a goofy little detail that they ran with, because like he also like not only had a bit of a mush mouth, but like it almost felt like he had an accent of some sort that I couldn't quite place.
Yeah. Maybe that's what people in Oregon sound like. I don't know.
Maybe.
Not the mush mouth, but the accent.
Yeah, I don't know much about the filmmaker Weston Razooli. As far as I can see, this might be I think this is his first film. But goddamn, I just love his weirdo vision of the world, and I want to see more of that. Yeah, I loved this movie. It might be one of my favorites of the film festival.
It was a lot of fun. I really liked it too. I'm glad it's being put out on disc.
Yeah, and the crowd liked it. And this is a weird, like I didn't know how the crowd was going to feel, because this is a weird movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love to see that Milwaukee Film Festival is taking chances on weird fucking shit, and people are responding to it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. All right, couple more. Next up, we have Your Fat Friend. Do you want to talk about this one?
Sure.
Oh, we watched this on April 24th.
Yeah. So Your Fat Friend follows what is her name?
Aubrey Gordon.
It follows Aubrey Gordon, who is known as Your Fat Friend online, as she progresses from basically being a blogger to having her own book, multiple books, and basically it's her talking about the experience as a fat person, and that's what she blogs about. But she was anonymous for a long time until she got to the point of writing the book. So she talks about the fear of like no longer being anonymous. But then she also talks to her parents, especially her mom, about things that they did when she was younger that unintentionally supported fat phobia and kind of caused some residual trauma. And just her parents' responses, especially her mom, like she was very understanding, and she was regretful, and she took it very well and wanted, wish she could have been better. And it was overall just a really good emotional film.
It was, and it was emotional in, for me, a cathartic way.
Yeah.
Because it's no secret, I grew up my entire life fat as well. I've tried the diets, I've tried exercising, I've tried all of that, and I hated every second of it. I was never happy with myself, and I always questioned. I always had this thought, look, if I can get myself down to this weight or whatever, I'll be happy or whatever. And I got to a certain point where I could never imagine myself putting myself through all this and somehow magically waking up happy. The happiest I've ever been was when I stopped caring about it, started and just doing things that felt right for me. Eat a salad because I fucking want a salad, not because I feel like that's what I have to eat. Exercising because I want to exercise, not because I feel like I have to do it to lose weight. And what I think this movie also does very well is just it preaches learning to love yourself and learning to better yourself for yourself and learning to love yourself. If I said that already, like I think I did already say that. But
more than that, it's about fat phobia that's in our society. Like
yes. I'm talking about undercurrents.
Yeah, like loving yourself is not enough. It's not going to fix everything because there's a lot of systemic issues. Like the world is not made for us.
No,
and that sucks.
The world's made for a very archaic view of what the human body is and was, if it ever was those things.
BMI is based on white guys, skinny white guys exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the world ever exclusively looked like skinny white guys. So.
No, definitely not. And it was, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It was a hard pill to swallow to see not only the scene with her talking to her parents about how they intentionally or unintentionally affected her in the way that she sees herself. But then, near the end when she has her big book signing and her parents are out there supporting her and supporting what she's doing, but then shortly after that they have a scene where the dad won't stop talking about the fact that it's a sugar-free, gluten-free cake. So
I think that happened before
did it happen before? Well, anyway,
yeah.
Still at that point she had her podcast was out there. She was talking.
Yeah.
They knew what she did.
She'd been, but they didn't read it. Like, they pretty much said that they didn't read her podcast.
Yeah, like that.
The podcast hadn't happened yet, but they didn't read her articles.
So even though she's a big source of influence for a lot of people, her parents still don't get it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, I feel like her mom was a little bit more receptive than her dad was to those conversations. I mean, there was that point where they had that party because she had gotten the book deal, and she talked about how it turned into a conversation of which diet is better at the party, celebrating the fact that she got a book deal where she could talk about fat phobia. And that's how the conversation went.
Yeah.
And that was with her dad and his wife.
And without a shred of irony in realizing that that's what they're doing, because it was so ingrained into the fat phobia was so ingrained into them, they weren't even processing that that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Some of the saddest parts for me were like when her mom was talking about how her dad made it her mom's responsibility to take care of her weight. And then, like they mentioned that her mom had read something somewhere that like the strongest bonding that women do is when talking about dieting. And it's just really sad.
Yeah. But no, I thought this was a fantastic documentary, and it's one that I definitely hope more people get a chance to see, and I hope that it gets picked up and is available for everyone.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right, so then that same day we watched another documentary. The back half of this film festival was a lot of documentaries. So back half of so that same day we watched a movie called Another Body, which is directed by Sophie Compton and Reuben Hamlyn. It is the story of a college student named, quote unquote, Taylor. We don't actually ever find out the subject's real name. Taylor is a college student, I think engineering, and who finds out that there was pornography made online using her face via deepfake technology. And the documentary kind of explores the way that she handles this, her trying to figure out who did this, why it was done, and to get the hope of getting some resolution into her life, and with the hope of moving on past all of this. But what is interesting about this documentary is, so the movie is about deepfake technology and how that can be used to essentially make pornography with anyone's face. But then the film uses deepfake technology to hide the real identity of the subjects themselves, in a way that at first I wouldn't have believed, because it was rather convincing. But then the more we watched, the more uncanny valley it kind of became. And it's one of the few times that I've seen a subject for a documentary used so well to also deliver the information.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think of Another Body?
I loved that they used deepfake over everyone's identity in the movie. I thought that was ingenious and really shows how, like, you see a lot of stuff online about new tech that's like everything's horrible, it's all scary, but it does kind of blow it out of proportion in that, like, you don't really know what it means. Like, they tell you, but it seems so unreal that it's hard to like wrap your mind around it. So watching a movie where they're talking about deepfake, and then I wish they had left the reveal till closer to the end, personally. But like a little bit into the movie, she says, "This is not my real name. This is not my real identity. This is done with the deepfake," and I think that's just so ingenious and really just shows how powerful it can be. Overall, I thought the movie was interesting, but I again wanted more from it. Again, like, I'm in the tech space, so it is all very interesting, but like there's a point where she's like, she gets invited to make a video for the White House to talk about legislation that they want to make around deepfakes. And we just hear that this is what's happening, and we don't actually like know how it goes. We don't learn anything about the legislation. She talks to a lawyer who doesn't really serve any purpose other than to congratulate her for finding out who did it. But this kind of thing is what this lawyer specializes in, and I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to know more about what we can do, what legislation is circulating right now, what, you know, like there's people out there that study IT ethics, and I want to know what they think should be done, because you can't, we're past the point of reversing this technology. This is an open source technology that's out there. It's not going away. So what can we do about it? And like, her story was very upsetting. And it needed to be there, like having that set into the story was important. But like, I think we spent too much time on her trying to find who did it to her when there was no resolution there, because there's not going to be a resolution because there is no legislation. So like, there should have been more. So like, I was looking forward to seeing how this was going to go based on, like, I was interested in the subject matter, and I feel like it needed a lot more. I needed a lot more.
Yeah, that's honestly how I felt. And like I said, they're just, like you said, there wasn't enough there. There wasn't enough on the bones. And that's not to take away from the real story that happened there.
Yes.
But it's not enough to hold a documentary like this that has something to say, but doesn't, it's like writing an opinion piece without anything to back up your opinions other than the fact that it's wrong.
I mean, it's like, if we compare it to an army of women, like, it would be like one of those survivors just telling their story, and that being the documentary. That is so upsetting. What happened is so upsetting. But it happens to a lot of people, so I want to know what to do about it.
Yes.
Like
you
an
said,
army of women.
You said after leaving the documentary, there was no call to action.
Yeah, like an army of women not only showed us what other women were doing, but it also ended with, if you know of a group that wants to show this, like a police department or whatever that wants to show this, send them here. Like, there was this is what you can do to spread this message. And I think this documentary needed to interview bigger people to get that, or needed to happen like in a year when there's more going on, because it is pretty new yet, this tech, and we need to know what to do.
Yeah, especially because like it's crazy to me that so this is not the first time that people's looks and identity have been used for other gain. This is just the newest way to do it. And I think even that could have been an interesting through line, talking about how this is not new. It's just the technology behind it is like, most notably, Crispin Glover did not want to come back for Back to the Future 2. But they still had his face mask made because they had to do old agey makeup on him on the first film. So what did they do? They made a mask of his face and put it on another actor, and just had him go out and pretend to be Crispin Glover. It's a different situation, but it's kind of got its foot in the same well. And he he fucking sued the studio and got a fuck ton of money for them using his identity without permission.
I mean, that would be an interesting comparison because she got nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing there. The lawyer told her that there was no legislation. There was nothing there. And that's another reason I wanted to hear more about him, because if this is the kind of case that he specializes in, is there a successful case? Has that happened? Like what is he seeing? But yeah, comparing it to something like that that's more tangible would be an interesting comparison and discussion, because it's everything that goes on is like all this new tech stuff is based on things that have been happening. It's just that it's the next progression that no one knows what to do with.
Yeah, and in the end, and I think this is why, especially why we need more. There was no real resolution. There was, we're pretty confident this guy Mike did it. We don't 150% know, but we're pretty confident he did it. The cops called him, and he never denied it, but he also never, it's like, like we've been saying, we both wanted more.
Yeah, and he did it to a ton of women, like not even just people he knew, but like they uncovered that he's this guy who's like known on 4chan for doing deep fakes for people like this. That's nuts. And
yeah,
like it sparks an interesting conversation, but it sparks an interesting conversation that most people don't have an answer to. And that's why like having experts weigh in would have been so incredibly valuable, and I really feel like would have been the difference between like this having significant waves in society versus this where I don't know if it's going to in the same way.
Yeah, 100%. All right, and then we wrapped up our long journey with the Milwaukee Film Festival on April 25th. Instead of going to the final night film, we instead went to see another documentary called Naked Ambition. I don't know if it actually officially has the subtitle Bunny Yeager, but I've been calling it Naked Ambition, the story of Bunny Yeager. Do you want me to explain this one, or you got it?
You can.
All right. So this is a documentary, as I said, about Bunny Yeager, who I'm so amused that she was referred to very commonly as the world's prettiest photographer.
Which is so weird.
Highly influential figure in the world of photography and pinup modeling, and she's a name that is not the household name she should be. She helped discover Betty Page. She, in all intents and purposes, invented the selfie. Has wrote dozens of books about self-portraitures and taking pictures in general. She was the first ever female photographer hired by Playboy, and one of the first photographers, period, hired by Playboy. Because, fun fact, Playboy used to just be submission based. They didn't take their own photos. And And then she just had a crazy career of, eventually getting into movies and music and a bunch of other things. And she's a name that is not very well known. And this documentary aims to change that. Issue is, she's extremely interesting. The documentary, not so much. What do you think of Naked Ambition?
I didn't know anything about Benny Yeager.
I've heard her name, so that's about it. All I knew.
Yeah. So I thought it was very interesting. But as with the Cyndi Lauper one, I didn't feel like there was anything too spectacular about the movie itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think her life is very interesting. Her accomplishments are incredible. The fact that she was such a working woman while also having a family, at a time where that wasn't really as common.
Yeah.
And not just a working woman, but she was an entrepreneur, basically. She had her own business. She was publishing books. She didn't just work an office job. So that's really cool. Them interviewing her daughters was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Because they had two very different perspectives on her life.
Yeah, the one daughter was very supportive and very passionate about her mom's art, and the other one believed that it was exploitative.
Mm-hmm.
Which I just thought was an interesting viewpoint from someone as open, at least from what we saw, as open as Bunny Yeager and her husband were, where it's I would have assumed that the kids would have both grown up more open-minded, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was interesting to have both of their perspectives. But yeah.
Yeah, so this is definitely a case of, and once again, this is a thing that happens with documentaries like this, where there is too much to talk about in such a little amount of time. She had such an interesting life. You could have done a documentary miniseries, and
absolutely,
and kind of touched on each aspect of her life. To me, it just kind of felt like reading a Wikipedia article because we didn't get much time of anything. Hell, this movie even just begins really fast and breakneck because they have so much to cover. But like I said, she's very interesting, and I loved learning everything about her, but I never really had any time to chew on any of the material. And there was interesting little stories throughout that I really enjoyed, like the issue between the two daughters that I wish we could have actually had more of. They touched very briefly on an archivist that worked for her and the falling out with him, but we also didn't get much from that.
No, he was just he had some things to say. He was listed as an archivist, and then we found out that he was let go, and that was it.
Yeah. And yet, with how little time we have in a movie like this where every minute counts, we had time for Larry King to tell a 5-minute fucking story about him being a radio DJ in Miami and about him almost hooking up with some random woman. The only thing that stopped him was the fact that his record was skipping. It had nothing to do with Bunny Yeager.
That was such a weird story, and I was waiting for that to be oh, the woman who called was Bunny Yeager. Nope, he's just telling a story to illustrate, I guess, how wild Miami was, but we didn't really need that.
No, I honestly felt like Larry King was sat down and didn't understand the assignment. But they're like, well, this is a good story, and we have Larry King. Might as well use it. I don't know. It's kind of like I said, it wasn't a bad movie. It was just painfully okay. And it's a shame because I felt like Bunny Yeager is such an interesting subject. She deserved more.
Yeah.
But, so yeah. Do you have anything else to say about Naked Ambition?
Not really.
All right. Well, that is our exhaustive 2 weeks as part of the Milwaukee Film Festival. Any final thoughts, Amanda, about the film festival experience in general?
I mean, This was the first time I've spent this much time at a film festival, this long of a film festival.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked the variety of movies that Milwaukee Film had. I mean, there were still ones that were not on our priority list that would have been interesting to see that we weren't able to fit in. So I think they had a lot of really interesting stuff, which was great, and a lot of variety, which I liked.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at everything we had seen, there wasn't many duds. Even the ones that we didn't like as much. Like, I didn't like Naked Ambition as much, or even Another Body as much. But I never felt like they were a waste of my time. There was never a point. I don't think there was a single movie where I'm like, "Oh, this sucks. Why are we here?"
Yeah,
and that's pretty great.
It was cool the couple times where they had like the filmmakers in. Like, it was nice to get some of that Q&A. Obviously, I know that's not entirely up to them. It's based on people's availability. But like that definitely added to the experience, specifically with like chasing Amy and an army of women.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and yeah, I completely agree with all of that. And if we are fortunate enough to get to do this another year, we kind of know what to expect now.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what the future of the Shameless Picture Show at Milwaukee Film has to offer. Yeah, as always, guys, thank you very much for listening. I know this season has been a little strange. I'll be the first to admit. 2 episodes in a row of me and Amanda talking about Milwaukee Film Festival. I love them. I love sitting around talking to Amanda. But then, we've had a couple more interview type episodes, and this has been a strange season. I appreciate you guys all sticking with me as we, as I start losing my voice, apparently, sticking with me as we kind of figure out the direction of the show. We've been going for 8 seasons. My personal rule is I got to keep this interesting for me. And anytime that I start feeling like it's becoming the same old is when I change shit up. And I love this. I love doing the show. I'm going to put it out now. Me and Amanda will have another episode of Cages the Rage.
Yes.
We will do that. I'm going to make that a priority. We can't do that in April because we're almost out of April. We're going to make that a priority in May.
Okay.
We will have another episode of Cages the Rage. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Be sure to keep your ears peeled for our next episode, which is going to be a interview with Maggie Greenwald, the director of The Ballad of Little Joe. We talk about her career, The Ballad of Little Joe, little bit of everything. And tune in next time. Shame Place, Shameless Picture Show.
The Shameless Picture Show is recorded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin and Easton, Maryland, and is hosted and produced by Nick Richards and Michael Viers. Today's episode was edited by Michael Viers. Our opening theme music was written especially for us by The Directionals, with narration by Zach McClain. The end credit music you're enjoying at the moment was generously provided by my friends in the band 10 Speed. The Shameless graphic design is masterfully done by Amanda Viers. An extra special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters and to our generous sponsors. We are on Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Google Play, and Libsyn. You can find links for all these amazing people in the description below.